Juliet learns new information that shatters her view of past memories. She also learns how to access the information on the hard drive that could answer many of her questions. But does it matter if she runs out of time to do anything with these new revelations? Hello and welcome to Road Goes Ever On and On. Today, Mark and I are discussing the thrilling 8th episode of the hit science fiction series Silo, so spoilers are ahead. And don't worry about running out of time. You have all video long to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon for notifications if you like. And with that, let's go ahead and hit and then quickly pivot from today's mug because it's
just another corny mug.
just another corny mug. We don't need to spend a bunch of time on it. Just a corny mug.
Just a corny mug.
Speaking of, and this is going to be one of the world's greatest transitions. Speaking of corn and where it comes from, cornfields, and the rabbits that live there, and the holes that they go down. Let's open up with some rabbit holes.
Yeah.
So I've been. This isn't necessarily something that came up in this episode. It's just something I've been kind of kicking around. The more I think about it, the more I think that your theory that they haven't been down there for over 140 years has very real possibility.
What makes you think that?
Okay, so they've been down there for so long, right? How do they have so much medicine? They have so much medicine. Like, everything is being recycled. There's nothing that's, like, really being, like, truly manufactured from scratch. Things are, like, cobbled together from other things. Or they're just totally regifted. You can't, like, reuse drugs. They're one and done.
Like for Gloria's drugs you're talking about specifically?
Just drugs in general. Like we know that they have, like, basic headache medication, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because he said he wanted to check some out. We know that they have at least Gloria's meds that, make her, kind of in a different world. We know that they have meds that could snap you out of that. It's hard to believe that those are the only 3 medications they have. So it seems like they've got meds.
Right.
How do you have this for this amount of time? There's a lot of things, and like you figure that I know that there's like a shortage on what is it, like hammers or whatever. People are like getting those from recycling because they're scared of things. But it seems like there would be, if there's a shortage, that tells me like they can't produce new ones. It seems like after this much time, so many would be broken. There would never be any. We've talked about this before, but it's like getting a little bit more under my skin. There's a good amount of blue in the show, and it's pretty vivid.
Yeah.
Like, even if they had a ton of blue paint in the beginning, that stuff gets dull over time. You'd have to, like, repaint it for it to, like, look that good. You'd run out of that. It's hard to produce blue. So, honestly, like, the book that has Hannah's name on it has like 5 names.
Yeah.
That doesn't seem like generations and generations and generations.
Right. Now, do you think, and we can go definitely deeper into this with, like, when we talk about Bernard, but, like, when he says that the founders of the silo wanted to put somebody in charge, like, do you think that they put Bernard in charge in the beginning and Bernard is completely unaffected by this memory loss?
I potentially think so. Because I connected that same kind of dot that you said. Like, the first half of his sentence sounded like he was saying the founders knew that they needed to pick the right person. But then the second half of his sentence, he didn't say, like, they picked me. He was like, that's my luck or something like that. Like, so he didn't directly connect the dot, but it did sound like they were wise and they knew they needed to choose the right person.
Right, so the founders chose only, like, one person. Like, it doesn't seem to me that the founders chose a person, and then that person has just been choosing a person ever since. So, did they choose Bernard?
I possibly, although he slipped when he said the hard drive, but he also immediately he didn't actually make it seem like it was a real slip. He made it seem like I I'm doing this on purpose. I'm toying with you a little bit at this point. Because at that point, like Robert Sims slid in behind her. So I don't think that was a real slip. Because he did say something about 140 years. So he is if he knows that it's not 140 years, he's very good about not slipping on that kind of information. And who knows? So
And
yeah, that's been
maybe he's just been so conditioned to talk about 140 years, like he's so worried about keeping the safety of the silo that he is, even if Juliet were to get out of this situation somehow, or if she were to, you know she's going to get sent out to clean, if she makes a case in front of everybody and like, no, 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 Bernard said, it's only been 50 years.
right.
Which also, when we looked at Hannah's record, it said like the year she was born, and it was like an actual like number. Like it was, it seemed like they were counting from that 140 years, and so I don't know if that proves that they were in there for 140 years and that she was just born on that year. I don't know.
It's really tough to tell. The show keeps its cards really close to its chest, and it doesn't. There are very few hints that are kind of given out, but I don't know. It seems like after all this much, this amount of time that we would have bred different looking cats or something like that. Like things don't look that foreign. Like people have really created a whole new culture. It does look like people are wearing like hand-me-downs, you know, but other than that, it doesn't seem like a weird new culture that's come up from being underground more like 140 years is the revolution. They were underground before that theoretically,
Mm-hmm.
if that's true. So probably over 200 years. I don't know, it seems like there should be more different and less drugs and lots of other it doesn't quite add up. But then building on that, and I know that it's not smart to build on a non-stable foundation, so maybe this isn't the best idea to go with. But if the silo hasn't been there for that amount of time, is the is the syndrome actually a new thing? Seems weird that that would have sprung up in such a short amount of time, or is it just something we know about that isn't being called that? So I was trying to look up things on, WebMD, and obviously the number one option is always cancer. Like
Yep.
you're dying, you have cancer. Um, but there's like not perfect correlations, but it did seem like encephalitis might be an option. And then another one was drug allergy actually checked a lot of the boxes, which, if they're putting some kind of drug in the water to cause memory loss, maybe some people are allergic to it, and some of those are like anaphylactic shock level of allergic, where they lose all body control, they go white, they go into a coma, they die. Like there's a whole range of that. So
And also, I mean, I didn't WebMD, but isn't there like some kind of thing that you can get, like if you're in like submarines a lot, like if you're like, and I could be making this all up, so don't take this to the bank, but I do feel like that if you are like trapped like in a very confined space for a while, you can get kind of like a shaking, like just sort of tremors. I could be making it up, I don't know, but
okay.
I'm wondering if that also might be.
That's it, because I didn't think about that, of like that extra thing of like what are things that are people that are underground experience or like underwater, whatever.
Like
Um,
almost like a psychological sickness,
yeah.
maybe.
And then there was one one comment from Juliet's friend Shirley that
Yes.
just kind of made me wonder. Like she said the thing about that Knox had said that eventually the people down there would be punished for the
Rebellion.
yeah, for the rebellion, and it which seemed like that added credence to what we noticed of what looked like a caste system, based off of like the level that you were on, that maybe people literally were being punished and put down there, and some of the, people above that know that those are potential troublemakers, and over time that's just turned to this like unease and misunderstanding of what the people from the down deep are like, that
And I wonder if the people from the down deep, since they're so low and they don't get to enjoy all the benefits of the silo, it starts making them question things more. And like, I wonder if whoever, Bernard is, or putting this, memory loss drug into the system, like, I wonder if it's more potent down there to keep them a little bit more complacent and willing to do the work for the silo. It is.
they also seem like they have like their work is much more busy work, like it's something those machines constantly need maintenance. You can't give them time off. They're constantly breaking, so it's like it it keeps their attention away from potentially questioning things too much, which
Well,
is
yeah,
what Juliet's dad hoped would happen with her, is that
right.
she would focus on, you know, fixing things in a good way rather than asking questions.
And Juliet even said in that episode when her dad was coming to get her when she was a little kid, and she was like, I don't have time to do this. I'm on my feet all day. I get maybe a 20-minute break. I come home
Right.
and I fall asleep right before my eyes hit the pillow. Like, they maybe work them so hard so they don't have time to question the caste system.
Right. So I think this is a good transition to the Nichols in general. And my first question is whether or not you think Juliet survives.
Survives the jump?
Yeah.
I think she survives. I think that she probably jumped off and grabbed on maybe 4 levels down, pulled herself up. I couldn't
I
imagine them killing Juliet this quickly.
I also think she survives, but this show actually has done a good job of seeding doubt. I feel like most shows have cliffhanger endings, but those cliffhangers are always resolved in a good way, you
Yeah.
know? Or the problem continues and isn't resolved, but it doesn't, you don't generally have somebody that's like, oh my goodness, it looks like that person is gonna die. How do they survive? And then the next episode it's like, they didn't survive. That's how.
Yeah. Well,
Like
and we saw that
they're
twice with Marnes and
that's
Johns.
that's what I'm saying. Like, so the show is actually using the cliffhanger ending in a surprising way, where it's not just a trick to keep you thinking for a week. It legitimately, you're like, it could go either way. I don't know who this show is going to keep around and who it's not. It's not quite Game of Thrones level of offing people,
Yeah.
but it's definitely keeping you on your toes and making you wonder whether or not somebody can be safe.
Though I feel like it would be very hard to survive jumping off the staircase at that level.
Here's my thought on this is okay, she's with Paul, and she sees him having the tremor, so she breaks away from him, and she doesn't break away sideways straight to the rail and jump off. She breaks away, she pushes past Robert,
Mm-hmm.
and then goes to the side and goes off, which means theoretically that was a spot where there was like literally 1 or 2 levels down. There was a walkway from the stairs to whatever.
Mm.
So I think potentially she didn't have to grab onto something. There's literally something right under there for her to, because if she, that seems like a big risk to just jump over. And it also seems like a big risk of being recaptured to run past another person
Yeah.
who's pretty intimidating.
Oh man, he chews a scene in this one. It's I
He does.
there
We'll get to
we'll
that.
get
We'll
to
get to
that, but
that. But he's intimidating. I would not want to run past him if I don't have to. So if the goal is just to jump over, go straight to the edge, jump over. But she goes up and past Sims and then jumps over.
but it
So
it does
that's
it
my
does
theory.
seem that like the walkways usually line up with each other, because if you think about like 144 levels, I believe, give or take, and like
Okay.
we've had people fall from different walkways, you would think that they
Okay.
would,
Yeah.
if like going up the spiral, it was like walkways were, interchanged. It would seem that like one of those people would hit at least a walkway going down, where they
Ooh.
do land all the way down to the very bottom.
Hmm. Okay. Well, we'll see. We'll see next week.
Or she died, or she just jumped off and
Or
she just said, you know what, forget this silo. I got closure with my dad. I'm
yeah.
off.
She learned a bunch about her, the truth of her past,
Hmm.
and I thought it was kind of sad.
I thought it was so heartbreaking. I you know I love how they set it up too, where when the dad is speaking to Juliet about, you know, I have to tell people that their baby died. And that's not the worst part.
Yeah.
Like Lost does this crazy thing, and it seems like he's gonna talk about Hannah, like that when she lost Jacob, that she went, into this like state of depression and was just like doing anything she could. But he was actually talking about himself, and that was a rug pull for me, where he admits to
Yeah.
being like he was terrible, like he was distant, he buried himself in his work, like he wasn't there to support Hannah through the loss of Jacob.
Right. And and then on top of that, as he's pulled inwards, he then gets vilified as being the person that turns them in, and that's sad to carry that burden on your shoulders and think that the best thing that you can do for your child is to let them go. Like, don't, he doesn't, he knows he can't change her mind.
Hmm.
So rather than like desperately trying to hold on and hope that their relationship gets better, he does what he thinks is the right thing for her, knowing that he will continue to be the villain of her story.
I mean, I
And that
even
was,
believed it. I believe that he
yeah,
ratted them out, because there's the part where the judicial guy is, ransacking things, and he asks about the rabbit, and he like looks to him
right,
like, is that what happened? And he, it did seem like he was the one that ratted him out.
right. So
But
that was definitely kind of like a sad backstory that we got in there.
so I do have a question about Hannah and the magnifying glass, right?
Okay. Yeah.
Making the magnifying glass is like one of the two rules that are like forbidden in the
Yeah.
pact.
Right.
So she did it. I'm surprised that she wasn't sent out to clean for that. Like it seems like she went so against the pact. She gave them the magnifying glass, they destroyed it, and there was like no consequence to Hannah for making that magnifying glass.
Maybe that's, I don't know. Maybe the fact she willingly gave it up. I don't know how these, it does, I mean, kind of like the name implies, it does seem that it is more of an agreement. Like, Paul is one of the few people that treats it as law. Where
Right.
it's like, this is like, here's what it says in this like subsection and how it applies to other things. Versus, I feel like a lot of other people look at it from the lens of, outside of like, if you say you want to go outside, you're going outside. The other stuff are very strong rules, but in the end, the most important thing is the survival of the silo. And I think maybe the reason why the pact is held up so highly is because like the pact is almost like the rule book of how do we survive in the silo.
Yeah, that's fair. And I guess maybe like if too many people got sent out to clean, like for infractions of the pact, they're like, okay, you gotta go clean. Then maybe people will be like, maybe we shouldn't follow the pact as closely. Like maybe we should rebel against this because we're just getting
Right.
sent out to clean all the time. So okay, yeah, all right, that passes. But it does seem that Jacob didn't die from the syndrome, which we believed originally. It does seem that he just had a tear in his heart or something along those lines.
I mean that might be part of kind of where I was going, where it's like it is something that would have been known about in the past and potentially easily treatable, but as a side effect of, not allowing microscopes or like magnifying glasses, whatever, it you can't treat this. I don't know.
And it did seem like this whole incident with the rabbit was very like not just that she made the magnifying glass, but that she used it to try to treat this rabbit and like fix its heart and whatever. And her just even getting this a hold of this rabbit like was this really negative thing. And why do they even have rabbits in the silo in the first place?
Right. It's
I mean, maybe they are eating the rabbit meat, but they have cows. We've seen cows, so like
yeah.
I think cows would be more efficient at feeding people than rabbits. But
Yeah, it's certainly at a bare minimum you can get more meat with less work, at least on like the butchering end of things.
yeah,
I don't know how much energy goes into producing cows versus
right.
producing rabbits when you talk about like the scale of the meat, but there's definitely an argument of it takes less effort to get more meat off of a cow. So, and what I mean, we've seen that we know that there are other things on the farm because we have seen like that pie that that Robert brought, but that it also almost seemed like that might be like a more of like a delicacy or like a treat, that maybe only some people have access to because for the most part we've seen corn and cows.
Corn and cows, apples.
Yes, corn cow. Yeah, yes,
Yeah, but not a lot of variety on the food aspect.
right.
I did like the little symbology between the rabbit and Juliet. I don't know if you
Okay.
noticed this.
No.
Well, not only the rabbit being kept in this little pen is like it being kept in its own silo because it's
Mm.
kept away from things, but after she lets the rabbit go into the cornfield, it when the whole revelation that Bernard is behind everything and Sims is trying to arrest her, Juliet's wearing brown, like the rabbit, and she's being chased like she's prey, and Judicial are these predators trying to hunt down this rabbit. I thought that was neat little symbology there.
I mean, and they definitely mirrored kind of like not quite opening and closing because I know that after the cornfield at the end, it does go to the stairs, but it's pretty close to like opening and closing scenes are mirrors, and definitely I think experiences have parallels even though they are very different. One is about like capturing something. You could argue that they're very much the same. So we can. I think this might be like a good time to talk about Sims and Bernard.
Okay, yeah, let's do it.
because I was gonna say like obviously these are different because like in one aspect you're capturing a rabbit and you're trapping it in order to benefit others, rather than like capturing somebody to hurt them. But I don't know, everybody, even the people that seem like they're on the bad side, if you will, still seem like they have the conviction of this is the right thing, even if it does hurt some people. Like
Right.
Sims very much seems like he is doing what needs to be done for the silo. It's not like he's doing what he needs to do. He's not trying to do this to live a lavish lifestyle.
Yeah.
He's not hurting other people so he can have like wealth and fame and, champagne.
Yeah.
The horrible things he's doing are for the silo. I think the same thing for Bernard. I think the horrible things he's doing are for the silo.
Right. He says that, the needs of the many require the sacrifice of the few. So, like,
Which I thought was an interesting perversion of that because it's like it's normally the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few,
right.
which is technically the same idea, but a weird way of saying it, requires
Mm-hmm.
the sacrifice of the few.
I,
That's a little more sinister. Versus, like, I think the other one kind of implies that, like, if the needs of the many don't require hurting anybody, we're all good. But if the needs of the
yeah.
many, need that some people get hurt, then it outweighs the needs of the few. Versus like I don't know, Bernard's is like just a little more sinister of requires
Well, it's
the
basically
sacrifice of the few.
it's basically like the trolley problem that they're living out, and they're like, well, we'll kill, three or five people, 3 to 5 people, whether it be Marnes, John, the guy that was going to be the fall guy for Marnes thing. Now,
Yes.
now
Yep.
Juliet, like, we'll kill a few
Hmm.
people so that we can save 10,000 people. It's a regular
Yes.
trolley problem, and they're fine with making that hard decision.
It's it's wild to me. So Sims, and we kind of danced on this a little bit, and I love Common in this role
He's so good.
because he can say things. I mean, part of it is just like the tenor of his voice,
Mm-hmm.
which I guess not really tenor, but like he has like a bass, baritone bass type voice. But he can even say things in a quiet and calm way. He can even say things in a very quiet and calm way, and it just seems so scary.
The best scene is when he's in jail, and it's just so good. Like, I was thinking about this. There's about 10,000 people in the silo. Like, that's not a huge population. I feel like,
Yeah.
maybe people don't know people down below very well, but like, it does seem like everybody in these like upper levels, probably in the mids, they all kind of know each other, like one way or another. Like, and the way that they're seeing things play out, they see, Juliet and Sims and Billings. They're like these like people just like running around the silo, like just getting into trouble because everybody knows each other there. And so Common being arrested, he knows the deputy. Like, he knows him. He knows
Right.
him by name, and he's like, hey, can I have a cup of coffee? And he looks at the other guys, and they're just kind of like, yeah, you could do that. And they're like, oh, can I use your radio? Looks at the other guys, they're like, not that one. Like, that's too far.
That one. That's yeah. But then I love him saying after that, I won't hold this against you. But I used to be in the service industry, and one of the things that a restaurant I worked at told me not to say, an actual rule, was you can't say no problem because it implies that there is a problem. Bringing it up lets people think about it. And that to me is what this is because he says, I won't hold it against you, which means that if that guy wasn't thinking about that, he now is thinking it. Like,
Was he gonna hold it against me?
was he gonna? Is he gonna hold it against me?
Well,
It's
but I
it's the
do.
most. It's such like it could be a veiled threat. You don't even know because he
Yeah.
says it in such a nice way. It's scary. It's hard to tell what he's
But I do. I could take it the other way too. That he was really saying like, we're all trying to do our job in the silo. You're doing you're doing what you're supposed to because you're supposed to listen to the deputy or the sheriff, and like you're following orders. So like I'm not gonna hold it against you, but I might.
But and that's the wild thing is like he's such an intimidating figure that even if he actually was being genuine with that, it would be hard for that not to keep you up at night. Of like, did maybe I did the right thing and he's proud of me, or maybe this is going to ruin my life if he gets out. Like you don't you don't know. Like he can say something honestly, just like when he brought the pie over.
Yeah.
He's such a menacing guy that it seems like yeah, obviously you poisoned it,
Yeah.
and then he just like casually eats it afterwards. Like I'm trying to do a nice gesture.
Yeah, and I mean, even like when he's trying to get the information from Gloria, like he comes at her from a very sweet disposition. He's like, you helped me get the folic acid, and
Right.
now we have a boy. He's about to turn 6, and for that, I'm always grateful for you. And since I'm so grateful to you, like I will give you the medicine to make your life not miserable here. But if you don't give me the information, you will sit in here with no medicine and you will just go crazy. Like
Right.
very very intimidating, very very scary.
So menacing, so intimidating. And we also saw it a little bit on the steps when he first got arrested. He asked, I think it was Paul, are you sure you want to do this?
Yeah.
And it's definitely menacing. And, he says something about she's the boss. So he's just following order, like he's following the rules.
Right.
And he says, like, she's the boss. And Sim says, for the moment. Which
A-
is like such a
And he asks Juliet as he's leaving, he says, are you sure you want to be doing this right now?
right.
Are you sure you're not going to regret arresting me? And she's just like, nope, I don't think so. Which, I did like that when she arrested him for an illegal search and seizure, even though she did that at Patrick Kennedy's house, a couple episodes before. And then as soon as she arrests him, she starts going through his office, and I thought that was hilarious. That she gets him for, doing the illegal thing. They all leave, and then she's just like, well, I'm going to do what he just did, but a little bit sneakier.
I don't think she really cares about like her conviction is that a person has been wronged.
Yes.
Like she definitely seems, which is wild because like as somebody who was working on like the generator of the silo, like that seems like the heart of it, and seems like that would but she is somebody who focuses on individuals and if they've been wrong, which I think she got that very much from her mom.
Mm-hmm.
Of somebody who's like maybe rules are wrong sometimes, and maybe trying to take care of each other is, on an individual basis, regardless of the rules.
Yeah. Interesting that they had these files on, like, Hannah and Gloria. And, I did try to look on the file of Hannah's to see if there was, like, extra stuff, but it only seems like the magnifying glass was what they were interested in. Like,
Right.
it didn't seem like she was a big... I think that maybe she got the term the Flamekeeper because she, went against the grain to try to like figure out the questions of like why can't we magnify? Maybe we could do better work if we magnify, but like
Right.
it didn't seem like she, like in the records or what I could tell from the records, it didn't seem like there was a lot. Well, and I mean she does flip the page, so maybe they had more information on her, but it did seem like it was just about the magnifying glass that they were upset.
That's I think this show is very intentional with everything it does, where it it gives plenty of flavor, but not a lot of hints and clues. There are some shows where if you watch it multiple times or if you like freeze frame on certain moments, you can get things that are big revelations. I feel like it makes sure that if a character turns to a certain page, and if you pause and look at it, you can get very interesting information. Like when I was reading about the Pez dispenser, there was lots of writing on it, but it didn't give up any secrets.
Right.
And that's interesting because some of the shows that I have really enjoyed have been shows that reward people that put in the effort.
Mm-hmm.
If you're willing to watch it a second time, if you're willing to like take the time to really pour over the words that are people are saying, you can pick up on a lot. And I feel like those shows are rewarding smart viewers for putting in some effort. And this one, it's still rewarding. It's rewarding in that it's entertaining, but I don't feel like it's leaving a lot of crumbs.
No, it really
There are a
isn't.
few, but it's like the one of the biggest crumbs I felt like I found was about the syndrome,
Yeah.
but that wasn't information about why they're in the silo, or if it's safe to go outside. Like that was more of just like a little preview of something to come, which you still don't know what's the impact. Like it's
Yeah. It doesn't
so
seem
that was
pivotal to the
yes.
narrative.
So to a certain extent, that's more flavor, like that. It's more like style than substance.
Yeah.
But I'm okay with it because they are keeping me engaged, especially since they uh, said this earlier. Like the fact that you don't know if somebody is safe or not. So it does make you feel like anything could happen at any point.
Yeah. It has seemed like that Billings has kind of been on the side of Juliet, and it does seem like by the end of this he's kind of over Juliet. Do you think they do you think he's like fully on the side of Judicial now? Do you think he's trying like he'll come back to help Juliet?
I I don't think he's over Juliet. I don't think he likes being used. And I think that she has used him many times and is careful about what she gives him to get a little bit of trust back from him. So I think he's kind of over her abusing his trust and not necessarily giving him enough information, using him as bait, or not really sharing information to have him help. But at the same time, while he knows the rules and he is very much a rule follower, I think he's also smart and understands why other people aren't necessarily doing that.
Mm-hmm.
So I think he does see that Judicial is abusing their power and why. and yes, he also sees that, Juliet um is abusing his trust, but also why? So I think that he's in this weird position where I think he does know that both sides are trying to use him, and he's trying to figure that out. And I think he will come to a right decision, um and possibly go a dangerous path as far as, doing something that is maybe against the pact, or who knows.
I am curious. It is cool to see. Like, I think Billing's wife is a good like surrogate of like people of the silo, of like how they're viewing everything that's happening, because he's not being really forthcoming with his wife about what's going on. And he was like,
Yeah.
oh, I had to choose between Juliet and Sims. And like his wife was like, is that even really a choice? Like, Sims is like head of judicial, like it seems like you should be listening to him. And like everybody in the silo is like, I talked about the 10,000 people that are in the silo. They all just see
Hmm.
Juliet going on these like random missions and doing these random things, and they're like, this is not good. Like, she's disrupting the silo. Like, this, you got to stop her. And so I think that is ultimately why Billings went against Juliet in this at towards the end. There is that he does realize that she is kind of a wild card.
I I don't know if he necessarily went against her as much as it was that he was following the rules, which is what he always does. Because when his wife said that that was, um, she made it seem like this shouldn't be a choice. Choose between, you know Rob Sims on judicial and Juliet. Obviously, it's Sims. This is a tough decision for him, and I don't think that he chose Sims. I think he's following the rules. The people up top have said that she said she wants to go outside, and the rules are that he needs to then escort her to this, because then he did try and give her the tool of saying, you can have this checked if you really believe that you were misheard. You can do this.
Yeah, but he does say, I am
So he
tired.
didn't he didn't say, like, I don't. He's tired
Ti-
of her abusing him.
yeah, he says he's tired of figuring her out. He's tired of
Yes,
trying to see what she's doing.
but I don't think he's necessarily. I don't think he's necessarily thrown the towel in on her, because it would have been very easy to not give her that advice and just say, these are the rules.
Right.
There's not a rule saying that you have to tell other people a rule that could help them out if you think
Right.
they're guilty.
Right.
So, like, that was him extending a small olive branch, not a very big one, but a small one.
But it is curious that he basically arrested Sims earlier for not following the pact, and then Sims gets let out, and he's just kind of like, oh, nah, I'm going with Sims now, even though he technically broke the rules. I don't know.
I'll see. I did think it was interesting to see how Walker's inability to go outside. I didn't think that it was like debilitating. I
Yeah.
thought it was more of like, like there are some people that are like, introverts, and they don't like being with a big group, and they'd rather be in their own home, and like the tight community that they know come to them in small groups. Like, they don't want to do big gatherings, but it's not like they literally couldn't leave their house if they didn't, if they need to.
Right.
Like, I'm a little bit more of an introvert, and I'd rather be with a small group. I'll definitely leave the house to have a nice meal, or buy something I need. Like,
Yeah.
something happened
Yeah.
for it to be that bad.
Yeah. So I think the term is agoraphobia, of like the fear of like leaving your house. And so I wonder if she suffers from that. But I mean, it was telling that, she hasn't left her place in, was it like 40 years, 20 years, something like that? I can't remember how
Okay.
long it
Yeah.
was, but that she realized that Juliet was in trouble and she was doing everything in her power. Like, she was about to go out, like, try her hardest to go outside to go get Juliet help, which is crazy.
Yeah. And I don't know if Shirley hadn't shown up, I couldn't tell if she was about ready to give up the attempt or if nobody had shown up, if that would have helped her summon up that last bit of courage of nobody else can do this.
Yeah.
I have to do it. And once Shirley showed up, it was like, oh, thank God,
Right.
That's which she needed that kick, unfortunately,
Yeah.
like does Shirley have the same conviction of because Shirley came to her. I don't remember exactly what it was like when she sent Shirley out, and saying like Juliet should have been here by now. Go find out what's going on. Shirley comes back and gives the info that she got,
Yeah.
and Shirley seemed to have stated that as fact versus coming in from a skeptical aspect of like this is what I heard.
Mm-hmm.
Because it was Walker that was like,
She was on her way.
and who heard her say she wants to go outside? Judicial
The
and
mayor.
Sims, like they've never told the mayor, like they've never told a lie. She like Walker was the one who knew that you can't necessarily trust some of these people.
Yeah.
So it's unfortunate because I don't feel like Shirley necessarily has the tools to like question all of this. She just gathered the information and brought it back versus like Walker needs to get her butt out of the house.
Yeah. I do wonder if, like, we see that Walker had a partner. Like, I wonder if Walker's inability to leave was part of the reason why, like, maybe if it is Judge Meadows, from that picture, maybe she was offered this judge position and she was like, we have to go upstairs. And she's just like, well, I'm not going. Sorry. But it is interesting that Walker also has a file, like one of the secret files on her. Why?
On who?
So, like, when Juliet found that thing in Sim's thing, where it was talking about Hannah and the magnifying glass,
Okay.
one of the files was Walker. Why is Walker, like, one of the big people that they are spying on? Like, she's made a radio, we know that, but, like, why is she get one of those, it seems like Flamekeeper files?
I mean, I think and since Walker has the technical know-how to like take care of things on her own, I think that she can not have mechanical come into her place. That's probably one of the few places where there aren't listeners.
Probably.
And she doesn't have to worry about, like whatever. Mechanical doesn't have to come in here. I'll fix things myself. And if they get pissed off and try and clog my toilet, I'll unclog it myself.
Yeah.
So that...
Well, and she never leaves her place, so, like, maintenance wouldn't be able to come in to install any cameras because she's always there.
Ooh, maybe that's some of the paranoia.
Oh,
like,
of why she can't leave.
Maybe she has heard whispers of people that, like, what happens after somebody, after like maintenance or something like that goes into it, like the things that happen when people leave. And
Yeah.
so she's paranoid of leaving her refugee that she knows she's doing some things she shouldn't be doing. And it's easier for her to watch it herself than to trust while she's out. There's definitely some fear, trauma, things going on. It
Yeah.
was it was interesting seeing it finally represented physically, where she was like shaking and trying to take one step forward and unable to do it.
Yeah.
That was wild to me.
I was. Ugh. Poor Walker.
Yeah. Like this, I don't know if we came up with any great theory. Like Severance, I feel like we captured a bunch of we don't necessarily know everything,
Right.
but we definitely like got some things.
I mean, we did theorize that Bernard in the beginning might be actually trying
We
to get some
yeah,
power.
yeah,
Because, like, when we were first talking about when we first found maintenance cameras and that there was a whole thing, and they're
yeah,
like, we have to wake him up. Now I don't
yeah,
even know.
yeah.
Maybe they were talking about Bernard because Bernard seems to be
Right,
the top. So,
right,
but yet the
right,
next scene we
right.
see
The
Sims
next, so you assume
that
that
it
they're
was
talking about
Sims.
Sims. Yes. Or here's the other interesting thing is it could have still been Sims exactly like we assumed, and maybe Bernard specifically has that level of like removal so that as few people know. And like worst comes to worst, if he came onto that position of like Bernard's position, or not, but like Sims's position, he removes that one person. There's no connection to him.
Well, but there is the. It does seem like when they're in the
Okay,
cornfield.
yes, when they're in the cornfield, obviously all those other people. Okay, yeah, yeah, yes, yes,
But
100%. That could have been. That's clever editing to be like we've got to wake him up, and then and that's the end of one episode. And so then when we start the next episode, we assume it's like
it's Sims.
immediately after. It could have been like there could have been a whole scene we didn't see with Bernard.
Mm-hmm.
And then after like with probably Bernard and Sims. Bernard probably like tells Sims what what he needs to do, and then like Sims takes it over from there, and
Right.
Bernard can go back to the shit he needs to do.
And I froze.
Froze.
I think it wasn't happening the whole time.
It's
Overall, good show.
yeah, really. I'm digging it. It's I do feel like I think eight is like 8 episodes is something that is like I'm somebody who enjoys like instant gratification.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like you have to move a little bit faster in 8 episodes. You can still do setup in the beginning, take your time, and have some things drawn out. Um, 10 episodes is definitely like with streaming services feels like the slower side of things,
Right.
but that's fine.
I do feel like we did get enough that, like, the last two episodes, it's just either going to be action packed full of stuff, and you're just going to be like, all right, every question you had, here's an answer, here's an answer, here's an answer, or maybe
I
even just
think
set
I
up
think
more
we're going to get
questions.
that's I think we're going to get Dark season 1 finale, Lost season 1 finale of what you thought the whole thing was about, or like the rules that you understood, you've been watching this long enough. You feel like you've cobbled together the rules. No, there's more than that. How is that important? And like, why is that important? Like, it's a whole other mystery that wasn't any of the mysteries that we cared about before. That almost seems important enough that some people can brush that the other mysteries aside.
Yeah.
I feel like that's what's going to happen here is we're going to have an expansion of questions. And obviously they like you have to give some nuggets in that,
Yeah.
but there's going to be like a big new thing of what the fuck, and now you have to sit through year and a half, 2 years waiting for that.
Do you think she's gonna go
You
outside?
know,
Like by the end of it, she like goes outside and it's fine outside.
I I don't think that unless that's not at the very end because like here's I think it's yeah, I think it's going to be a sharp turn that nobody's expecting, like big what the fuck moment.
Mm-hmm.
And if that were obvious with everything that we've watched up to this point, then it wouldn't be much of a what the fuck moment. But
Right.
something that is just I don't know, maybe 1 in a million people will predict it.
Right.
I have a feeling that we're not one of them.
Yeah, probably not. You're probably right.
Unless we like unless our goal is to like come up with 100 predictions that are not likely.
Right. And we
And
might be
and
close.
even I think that's where it's going.
Mm-hmm.
There's big big flip coming up.
I'm excited. And we'll see.
Literally end of episode 10. That's it's not going to happen a second earlier than
Right.
like last quarter of episode 10, if not the last scene.
Yeah. Man, excited. And with that, I think our journey has come to an end. Thank you folks so much for joining us this week. Come back next week and we will be doing the second to last episode, episode 9 of Silo. So come back next Monday. Thanks for joining along with us. I'm Mark. This is Sterling.
Thanks.